One thing on what is your ad spend like? Because you're obviously now selling on Amazon. Like, what is your ad spend? Well, first, I guess sales Amazon versus Shopify, and then ad spend Amazon versus Shopify. What does that look like?
Yeah, so at first it was zero Amazon, and then it
Mm-hmm.
was 10% of our sales, and then 20% of our sales. And I think now, if you were to look on like a weekly, daily sort of basis, Amazon's like 30% of our sales now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, we've been able to grow that very well. And part of it was because, I never, I've been doing Amazon stuff for a long time. And it's like, I never really heard too many people talk about Amazon, like from a direct marketing standpoint. It's like, what are we acquiring a customer for? And like, what's our lifetime value? And then
Mm.
basically deciding like, cause in Amazon, I don't know if it's still in there, but was looking at this like 2 years ago, and inside of the subscribe and save report, it would basically be like, here's your one-time purchase, I think lifetime value, and then here's your subscribe and save lifetime value. And so what we
Mm.
were finding out is like our lifetime value was pretty good over like a 12-month period. But then a lot of people, are kind of just all trying to break even or make money on their like first sale on Amazon. But for us, it's like we had lifetime value data like sitting there. So then we started adjusting how we marketed on there based on like, okay, we're willing to lose money for a year on acquiring a customer because we know everything after that is like free money basically. And we know there's going to be some bleed off on our website and stuff like that. And so that kind of helped us like scale quite a bit on Amazon also.
That's amazing. Okay, and then what about your ad spend? So Shopify, right? You're doing what is your ad spend on Shopify versus revenue? Because these are kind of numbers like on Amazon. I know, like, okay, good, super efficient. 5% is your total Amazon sales, and like good 15%. Like you're going pretty hard, and then of course beauty and some other ones go a little harder. Like that's a range that's typical. What about on the Shopify, right? And maybe on your thing, or maybe in general as well.
Yeah, I mean, for us right now, we've started optimizing a little more for profitability. So right now, I think we spend like $500K a month on Facebook ads, and that's the biggest advertising channel by far.
And what's percentage of our revenue? That's on 4 million a month.
Yes.
So that's like 10, like 12, 13%, something like that.
Of total sales, yeah. And so Shopify will do like 2 point something million dollars a month in sales, and so less than 25% of that or so.
Okay.
When we were first scaling, like for the first year, it's like our gross margin after cost of goods sold, packaging, shipping, credit card processing was like 50%, and still is about 50%. Mm-hmm. And our advertising was like 45% of sales.
Wow.
So that means we had like 5% for OpEx. But Charles and I, the first year, didn't pay ourselves anything. We had other income sources and stuff. We just had enough to pay like a very lean team. And then we kind of maybe pulled it back to like 40% or something like that the second year. So we were heavily invested in acquiring customers and growing as quickly as possible. And then now I think it's more like 25 or 30% or something like that is kind of our target. And sometimes it fluctuates based on how advertising is performing. But I think the whole game on Shopify is like, at first, just try to break even up front. It's like, you're not making any money, but just on a gross profit basis, like forget your operating expenses and stuff. Yep. Just try to keep those as lean as possible. So as long as you're breaking even up front on acquiring customers and selling good products, like some percentage are going to come back and buy. Then eventually, the only way you're going to be able to keep scaling at any sort of good rate is you're going to have to understand your lifetime value and see how far you're willing to go negative. And so for us, we're like, we got to break even in month 1. And then we're like, okay, got to break even in month 2. Then we're like, okay, we're kind of okay because we got recurring revenue coming in and email marketing and all kinds of stuff that doesn't cost us anything. We're willing to break even in 6 months. And today, and for the past maybe year and a half, 2 years, we've been like, okay, we're willing to break even over a year. And so that allows us to, like, if somebody wants to come in and compete with us, they've got to have big pockets or a big business or something like that, because they're just going to like burn through cash trying to acquire customers at the cost we're willing to acquire customers for, which is like the whole game that you're after.
And that's already with optimized hooks, optimized landing pages, optimized everything. So you already have all dialed in. And then you're like, hey, you're going to keep the CPMs high so no one else can go in and try to get your same customer who's about to buy their next coffee or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like at any point you can be like, we're willing to slow the machine down and, just want to maximize profits and stuff. But it's like, I think you can also push it a lot further and longer and build like a real lasting brand, which to me kind of all circles back to like, we don't just want to sell on Shopify, just sell on Amazon. Eventually we want to build a brand that can be sold kind of anywhere, and still think there's that opportunity for this business. But part of what helps is like, continually investing in advertising. And so that's why at some point too, we used to run very like kind of clickbaity sort of ads. But then like, you may get a 5% conversion rate if you're doing good. That means 95% of the people that see your ad, like at least you're not tracking those sales right now, but they're seeing your ad. And so at some point I was kind of like, what do the big companies do? The big companies, like they're not so concerned about how many sales do I get right now. Over years and decades, they're like Coca-Cola plus a polar bear, Coca-Cola plus having a good time, Coca-Cola plus a baseball game, like this association with a brand. And I was like, we're spending all this money on Facebook ads. I was like, at some point we should start having those same associations because that just kind of compounds over time, even though it's like somewhat hard to measure. So it is like, we're still trying to make money, that we can track as best as we can. But advertising for us, like literally is an investment that does provide, we believe, like long-term intangible benefits just because there's so much exposure happening.
Absolutely. Brilliant. And then on Amazon, what's your kind of ad spend versus sales, so to speak, there?
I think our ad spend is like a couple $100,000 a month. And then we're doing about $1 million a month there in sales. Okay. We're about to cross the $1 million level.
Nice.
And for us, we get so much brand traffic. Yeah. And then for us, it's like we get so much brand traffic because of all of our Facebook ads. And so that stuff is very profitable, but then we're willing to like invest and go negative on like the non-brand stuff. Like not go crazy, but as long as we think we're okay over like a year, that's fine.